Part 22. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 211. Zhangqiao Village, in the courtyard of Zhang Huijing's house. Park Yishan, you misunderstood. After hearing Park Yishan's reckless threat, Zhang Fenjai's eyes flashed with a terrifying murderous intent, and he said with a sincere smile on his face. I, Zhang Fenjai, am a person who sweeps the floor afraid of hurting ants and cherishes the moths that cover the lamp. How could I do such a cruel thing as killing people? You are smart. Park Yishan, who mistakenly thought that Zhang Fenjai was afraid of the revenge of the Supernatural Research Institute and wanted to let him leave, flashed a smug look in his eyes. In response, Zhang Fenjai kept a sincere smile and used his mind to take back the terrifying power. Then, the countless resentment and evil spirits that had just been dispelled by the terrifying power quickly enveloped him again, which made Park Yishan's face suddenly change, and he finally knew Zhang Fenjai's sinister intentions. Without the slightest hesitation, he took advantage of the gap between the resentment and evil spirits, overdrawn all the spiritual power in his dantian, and rushed out the door. Whether it was the sneak attack when she was about to accept reincarnation, the attack she endured during the promotion to the, or the attack she almost made by being induced to make a wrong judgment just now, Zhang Huijing, who was full of resentment, could not easily let Park Yishan go. So, when she saw Park Yishan trying to escape, Zhang Huijing gently waved her hand, and the resentment and evil spirit that were shrouding her instantly enveloped Park Yishan. Then, the terrifying pressure formed by countless resentments and evil spirits immediately pressed Park Yishan to the ground. Brother Zhang, it was all my fault just now. Please spare your life for the sake of Sister Zhuang. Feeling the fragile flesh begin to show scars under the oppression of the terrifying pressure, Park Yishan quickly begged. Brother Park, I'm really sorry, my strength is limited, and I really can't help you. Zhang Fenjai shook his head with embarrassment. Seeing Zhang Fenjai, who was unmoved, a trace of hesitation flashed in Park Yishan's eyes. However, when his facial features began to bleed, his breathing became difficult, and his vision gradually blurred, the imminent danger of death replaced the hesitation in Park Yishan's eyes with determination, and he began to violate the discipline of the Supernatural Research Institute and exchange his own secrets for a glimmer of life. Brother Zhang, if you are willing to spare my life, I will not only take out the treasure of the Shendun men, one of the 10 major sects, the Taoist art of shrinking the earth into an inch, but also tell you a shocking secret. Faced with the tempting conditions given by Park Yishan, Zhang Fenjai was not tempted at all. Firstly, the Qingfeng step he was practicing now, whether it was the speed of spiritual power assistance or the grade of Taoist art, was far superior to the Taoist art of shrinking the earth into an inch of the Shendun men. Secondly, another meaning of the so-called secret is danger, and the secret of the shocking level means that the degree of danger is enough to be fatal. For Zhang Fenjai, who only wanted to improve his Taoist practice and accumulate enough wealth so that he could live in seclusion in the mountains in the future, this was not attractive at all. Because of the blurred vision, he couldn't see Zhang Fenjai clearly, so he didn't know his current reaction, so Pu Yishan continued to ask. Brother Zhang, what do you think? No matter what, Pu Yishan is also a top genius among the monks, an elite trained by the Supernatural Research Institute. Zhang Fenjai really didn't want to see him sell his dignity for his life, so he turned his head and told Zhang Huijing. Zhang Huijing, send him off. Yes. After nodding in response, Zhang Huijing stretched out her jade hand and gently patted Pu Yishan. The pressure formed by the resentment and evil spirit instantly increased by more than 10 times, directly crushing Pu Yishan's body and crushing his soul. After retracting his gaze from Pu Yishan, Zhang Fenjai looked at Zhang Huijing's clear eyes and solemnly exhorted. Zhang Huijing, I will teach you a formula that can restrain your own breath. After you use the formula to hide the resentment and evil spirit emanating from your body, immediately rush to Shushan, which is about 150 miles away from here. There is a century-old Taoist temple on the top of Shushan. There is a Taoist priest named Wuxin in the Taoist temple. He will arrange a suitable place for you to practice. Can I ask you a question? What is your relationship with the Taoist priest Wuxin? Although she was very satisfied with Zhang Fenjai's arrangement, Zhang Huijing was a little worried about the strange Taoist priest who received her. After all, she was very clear about her identity as a and what it meant to some cultivators. He is my third grandfather and the guide who taught me Taoism. Okay, I will follow your arrangement. Since they are blood relatives, they will definitely not hate her. Zhang Huijing secretly breathed a sigh of relief and quickly nodded and agreed. Afterwards, Zhang Fenjai taught her the formula for restraining her own aura and personally instructed her in her practice. Only after she was able to completely restrain all her resentment and evil spirits and ensure that no one would detect any abnormality, did Zhang Fenjai let her go to Rat Mountain with confidence. Watching Zhang Huijing disappear quickly in the sky, Zhang Fenjai withdrew his attention and walked to Park Yishan, who was compressed into meat paste. He stretched out his fingers to pick up his clothes and shook them. There was nothing valuable except the fragments of his mobile phone and wallet. Then, he threw away the blood-stained clothes and turned to leave the yard. However, when he came to the haystack at the entrance of the alley, he found that Zhuang Jian, who was supposed to rest and heal here, had not only disappeared, but also hundreds of villagers were leaving with boxes on the main road at the entrance of the village. There was no need to think too much. He also knew that when he was dealing with Zhang Huijing, who had advanced to the level of a fang ghost, alone, Zhuang Jian must have met someone passing by the entrance of the alley, and then returned to the village committee compound with his help and contacted the leader of the Institute of Supernatural Studies. With the country's attention to the people, facing the fang ghost that could cause great suffering, the unarmed people would definitely be evacuated as soon as possible. Therefore, Zhang Fenjai, who had successfully solved the hidden danger of the fang ghost, immediately mobilized his spiritual power to rush to the entrance of the village with the Qingfeng step, and then contacted Zhuang Jian, who was healing in the village committee compound, through a policeman responsible for maintaining order. Zhang Fenjai, are you sure you have completely solved the hidden danger of the fang ghost? Zhuang Jian, who quickly rushed to the entrance of the village with the help of two beautiful nurses, asked in disbelief. Teacher Zhuang, if I haven't completely dealt with the fang ghost with strength comparable to the foundation building stage, can I appear in front of you safely? Zhang Fenjai asked with a smile. Great. After getting Zhang Fenjai's affirmative agreement, Zhuang Jian cheered excitedly, and quickly signaled the beautiful nurse beside her to hand over the intercom, and then contacted the person in charge of evacuating the people and told him that the evacuation was lifted. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yanyun Yuqi. Chapter 212. Zhangqiao Village Entrance. After handing the walkie-talkie back to the beautiful nurse beside her, Zhuang Jian raised her chin and looked behind Zhang Fenjai. When she found that there was no one behind him, she asked with a hint of worry in her eyes. Zhang Fenjai, where is senior brother Pu? Well. After deliberately letting out a long sigh, Zhang Fenjai said with sadness on his face. Teacher Zhuang, I'm really sorry. When I broke into the yard and faced Zhang Huijing's transformation of the beast ghost, the cyan mask formed by Brother Park's defensive spell had been completely shattered. Moreover, the pressure caused by the endless resentment and evil spirit was so terrifying that I could only watch senior Brother Park die tragically under the pressure of terror, and in the end I was unable to help. After hearing Zhang Fenjai's explanation, Zhuang Jian said in relief with lingering fear, thinking of the terrifying pressure that could make her body and soul collapse instantly when she was separated from the protection of the cyan light shield. Zhang Fenjai, the murder of senior brother Pu only shows that he was in bad luck and has nothing to do with you. You don't have to feel guilty about it at all. In this regard, Zhang Fenjai just nodded silently without saying anything else. Right. Whether it is the accidental death of Park Yishan, one of the 8 heroes of the Supernatural Research Institute, or Zhang Fenjai's methods and achievements in successfully resolving the crisis of the demons, they all need to be reported to the leaders who have been paying attention to the matter. Therefore, after the empathetic relief, Zhuang Jian hurriedly said goodbye. Zhang Fenjai, since the crisis of the wolf ghost has been successfully resolved, there is no need for the seniors in the foundation building period to come here, so I need to return to the village committee compound immediately to report in detail to the superiors. Teacher Zhuang, go and do your work, Zhang Fenjai gestured with cupped hands. However, when Zhuang Jian, supported by 2 voluptuous beautiful nurses, turned around and was about to leave the village entrance, Zhang Fenjai suddenly spoke out to persuade her. Teacher Zhuang, please wait a moment. Zhang Fenjai, what else can you do? Zhuang Jian turned around and asked with a trace of doubt in her eyes. After retracting his glance at Director Qian and the thin doctor who had accidentally seen him just now, Zhang Fenjai appeared beside Zhuang Jian and signaled the 2 beautiful nurses to step back temporarily. He supported Zhuang Jian with his own hands and whispered a reminder. Teacher Zhuang, the villagers who died in Zhangqiao village were infected by the evil spirit of a fish monster at the bottom of the Qinghe River. It has nothing to do with the so-called infectious disease. Zhang Fenjai, are you sure? Zhuang Jian asked seriously. Certainly. While nodding in affirmation, Zhang Fenjai told in detail the causes and consequences of his encounter with the fish demon, as well as the use of the fish demon's blood to rescue Zhang Huijing. Of course, as for the process of killing the fish demon, he just talked about it in a few words. No wonder more than 3,000 villagers in Zhangqiao village died at the same time. No wonder Dr. Leng and others couldn't detect any viral bacteria. It turns out that all this is caused by the fish demon's evil spirit. After hearing Zhang Fenjai's detailed introduction, Zhuang Jian's eyes flashed with a look of realization, and she suggested with a relaxed smile on her face. Zhang Fenjai, whether it is resolving the crisis caused by the wolf ghost harming the common people, or killing the fish monster causing trouble, it can be said that it is a good deed of immeasurable merit. I will report it to the leader truthfully, and then get you the reward you deserve. Whatever. After Zhang Fenjai shrugged his shoulders without any interest, he motioned to the 2 beautiful nurses to support Zhuang Jian again, then turned and left straight to the commercial street. However, when he returned to the fish restaurant on the commercial street, he found that the Bugatti Veyron sports car parked at the door was missing. At the same time, the cordon dozens of meters away and a large number of armed police also left. Thinking of the evacuated villagers of Zhangqiao village whom he had just seen at the entrance of the village, Zhang Fenjai could probably guess the reason for the changes in the commercial street. Therefore, he did not enter the fish house to look for Zhu Zhenjun and He Tongtong, but mobilized his spiritual power to assist King Fengbu and left the commercial street directly. When he was about 7 or 8 miles away from the commercial street, he happened to encounter an idle taxi, so Zhang Fenjai took the taxi and rushed to Guanghe Washington Mansion. In the yard of Zhang Huijing's house. Looking at the old man in his 60s who was wearing a light gray monk's robe, with bushy silver hair and a slim figure, Zhuang Jian's eyes showed gratitude. Because now she can stand in the yard of Zhang Huijing's house without anyone's help, and it is the gray-robed old man in front of her who personally dispels the remaining resentment and evil spirits in her meridians. After losing the protection of Brother Du's defensive talisman, Pu Yishan's body and soul persisted for 10 seconds before finally collapsing and dying. After using a fishing pole to pick up the blood-stained suit, the old man in grey robe squatted down and carefully inspected the completely shattered bones, and then muttered to himself. Looking at it this way, the soul that advanced to the realm of the rooster ghost is just the strength of the black resentment rooster ghost for the first time. It cannot make a big splash, so it is not worth using the means of life genes to track down. After muttering to himself, the old man in grey robe threw away his blood-stained suit, stood up and looked at the respectful Zhuang Jian, with a kind smile on his face and a gentle compliment. Xiao Zhuang, you encountered so many difficult troubles in one day. You, a girl, handled it calmly and decisively without any panic, and saved the country a great reputation and loss. You deserve praise and awards. Mr. Chu, you are too kind. This is my responsibility and what I should do. Faced with the praise from the grey-robed old man, Zhuang Jian immediately looked very nervous and quickly bowed her hands to be modest. Seeing that Zhuang Jian was not arrogant and kept a low profile, the grey-robed old man, known as Mr. Chu, nodded with satisfaction and promised with a smile. Xiao Chuang, our Supernatural Research Institute not only respects strength, but also follows the principle of clear rewards and punishments, so you should take the credit and the reward that is due to you, and you don't have to care about other people's thoughts and opinions. Thank you Mr. Chu for your respect and cultivation. After receiving Mr. Chu's guarantee, Zhuang Jian secretly breathed a sigh of relief and quickly bowed her hands to thank him. However, thinking that the reason why she was able to receive Mr. Chu's praise and reward was thanks to Zhang Fenjai's timely resolution of the hidden dangers of the killing of the evil fish monster, Zhuang Jian did not dare to take the credit and tell Mr. Chu everything about Zhang Fenjai. At the age of only 18, his cultivation has already advanced to the realm of spiritual power transformation. He promptly discovered that the villagers of Zhangqiao village were infected with evil spirits that corroded their internal organs, and killed the fish monster at the bottom of Qinghe River. He dared to face the black resentful Fang ghost whose strength was comparable to that of the foundation building stage alone, and successfully resolved the resentment in the black resentful Fang ghost's heart and gave up revenge. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yanyun Yuqi. Chapter 213. Zhangqiao Village, in the yard of Zhang Huijing's house. After hearing Zhuang Jian's detailed explanation of Zhang Fenjai, Chu Lao's eyes flashed with a look of shock and excitement, and he hurriedly asked, Xiao Chuang, where is the young man named Zhang Fenjai now? I think he should be in Villa number 7 of Guanghe Huafu now, Zhuang Jian replied with an uncertain tone, thinking back to the process of meeting Zhang Fenjai. After all, on the night they met each other, Zhang Fenjai drove her away as a guest of the villa. As for whether she had returned to Villa number 7 now, she was not very sure in her heart. Xiao Chuang, take me to see Zhang Fenjai immediately. After the fishing rod in his hand disappeared instantly, Chu Lao immediately ordered Zhuang Jian. Jian obeys. After nodding in response, Zhuang Jian immediately took out her mobile phone to contact the driver and asked him to drive over immediately. Just as the taxi passed the West Ring Road and entered the city, Zhang Fenjai, who had been admiring the scenery outside the window, looked at the couples on the road, and a feeling of something was not right emerged in his heart. He always felt that he seemed to have overlooked something very important, but he couldn't remember it for a while. When the taxi driver waited until the phone was connected and told his wife who was off work not to forget to visit her parents, a flash of inspiration suddenly flashed in his mind, and he immediately thought of what he had neglected. That was Sulitzi, who was on a business trip, had never called him back, because he had always wanted to discuss with Sulitzi about returning to Shusanjiang village during the Mid-Autumn Festival. When Zhang Fenjai thought of the 3 unanswered calls he had made to her the night before, he immediately took out his mobile phone and checked it. After finding that there was no missed call, he immediately found Sulitzi's phone number and called it. But the phone showed that it was turned off. Looking up at the taxi driver who was still on the phone, Zhang Fenjai moved slightly to avoid the rear-view mirror, and began to calculate with his hands and silently chanting a spell. Evil spirits are rising, bloody disaster. After calculating Sulitzi's current fortune through her birth date, Zhang Fenjai's eyes flashed with regret and confusion. He regretted that he was too careless. When he didn't contact Sulitzi the night before, why didn't he use the hexagram to calculate her fortune immediately, so that she fell into the danger of bloody disaster? The confusion was that he and Solitsi had already established a romantic relationship, which would form a tacit understanding between each other. This kind of tacit understanding would at least give him a certain warning in advance when Solitsi was in danger. However, thinking of Zhuang Jian and Black Bat King encountered in the past 2 days, thinking of the 5 ghosts moving wealth formation and the ancientness of the Gukang sect, thinking of the fish demon and the Fang ghost transformed by Zhang Huijing, even if there is a tacit warning in the mind, I am afraid that the subconscious will automatically ignore it. After taking a deep breath and calming the remorse and self-blame that emerged in his heart, Zhang Fengjai called Shen Loxi and asked about the location of Sulitsi's business trip, the hotel she booked, and the time of the last call. After getting the information he wanted, he immediately contacted Zhu Zhenjun, who had returned to Villa number 7, and asked him to drive over to meet him immediately. 5 minutes later, Zhang Fengjai got on the Bugatti Veyron driven by Zhu Zhenjun at the intersection of the municipal gymnasium. "Brother Zhu, please rush to Shenyuan Resort in Sishui County as quickly as possible." "Brother, I'm in trouble." While starting the sports car, Zhu Zhenjun looked at Zhang Fengjai with a gloomy face and asked with concern. "Sister Litsi is in danger." After answering Zhu Zhenjun's question, Zhang Fengjai closed his eyes and recalculated Sulitsi's fortune, looking for the flaws of the evil spirit and the weakness of the blood disaster. Knowing that Solitsi is Zhang Fengjai's official girlfriend and his legitimate sister-in-law, Zhu Zhenjun dared not neglect to step on the accelerator to the bottom and rush to Sishui County at a speed of more than 200 per hour. Fate offends villains, triggering disasters. If the literal meaning of the hexagram is interpreted, it means that Solitsi temporarily took over Lu Xiaoyi's Shenyuan Resort project, and there were too many disputes over interests, which eventually provoked revenge from villains whose interests were damaged. Don't know how to retreat, encounter blood disaster. Solitsi's character is too strong, and she is unwilling to retreat temporarily, which leads to the people whose interests are damaged secretly kidnapping her. Trapped in the tiger's den, facing life and death coercion. The place where the other party took her after kidnapping is a place with a relatively complex geographical location, and she exchanged her own life safety for damaged interests. The line of trouble is short, money can solve the crisis. The kidnapper who kidnapped her was neither a cultivator who cultivated spiritual power nor a monster who cultivated demonic energy. He was just an ordinary mortal, and he could use money to exchange for her safety. Using Solitsi's birth date and 8 characters, combined with the tacit calculations of each other, Zhang Fengjai has basically figured out the reason why she suffered a bloody disaster. However, according to the final display of the hexagram, the group that kidnapped Solitsi had called to ask for a high ransom, but the person who was asked for the ransom did not agree to the kidnapper. So, who did the kidnapper ask for the ransom? Thinking of this, Zhang Fengjai immediately took out his mobile phone and called Shen Loxi. "Mr. Shen, did anyone call you yesterday to ask for money?" "No." Through breathing, heartbeat, and tone, Zhang Fengjai was able to confirm that Shen Loxi's answer just now was not a lie, and continued to ask. "Mr. Shen, where are you now?" "I'm at home." "Is Chairman Shen at home?" "My father is in the study." "Please ask him to answer the phone." "Okay, wait a moment." After about 30 seconds, Shen Shengeo's unusually respectful voice came from the phone. "Master Kingxiu, I wonder what you want to do with Shengeo." "Chairman, you are too polite. I want to ask if you received a call asking for money yesterday." "No. Yesterday I went to the provincial capital to attend the real estate forum held by the richest man in China. My phone has been vibrating, and I didn't receive any calls asking for money." After being able to judge that Shen Shengeo was not lying through breathing, heartbeat, and tone, Zhang Fengjai hung up the phone after a polite word and couldn't help frowning. If the kidnappers didn't call Shen Shengeo and Shen Loxi, then who were they asking for ransom from? Could it be the parents that Solitsi never wanted to mention? Thinking of this, Zhang Fengjai shook his head vigorously and stopped thinking about who the kidnappers were asking for ransom. Instead, he closed his eyes again and regulated his breathing so that he could recover the spiritual power and energy consumed in killing the fish monster and dealing with Zhang Huijing. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 214. Sishui County is about 100 kilometers away from Ningji City and less than 80 kilometers away from Shenyuan Resort, which is being developed by Yongsheng Group. With Zhu Zhenjun's superb driving skills, the Bugatti Veyron was basically running at a speed of nearly 200 kilometers per hour. Without anyone daring to stop him, it took less than 30 minutes to successfully arrive in front of the resort, which was nearly half developed. "Brother Zhu, wait in the car first." After holding down Zhu Zhenjun, who was about to get off the car, Zhang Fengjai gave him a warning, opened the car door and walked to the resort, to the temporary security room, and then greeted an old man who was listening to opera in the security room. "Hello, uncle." Looking up at Zhang Fengjai, who had a simple smile on his face, the old man, who immediately had a good impression of him, quickly turned off the radio and asked with a kind smile on his face, "Young man, who are you looking for?" "Uncle, did a female leader of the group come to the construction site of the resort the day before yesterday?" "Yes, she was a very, very beautiful girl." Thinking back to the beautiful female leader of the group who was dressed in a capable professional suit, the old man praised sincerely, "Uncle, that very, very beautiful girl is Sulitsi, who is both the deputy general manager of our group and my girlfriend." After hearing that Sulitsi had indeed come to the construction site of the resort the day before yesterday, Zhang Fengjai secretly breathed a sigh of relief, and quickly stated his identity, and then continued to ask, "Uncle, when did my girlfriend leave the construction site the day before yesterday?" "Let me think about it." "The boyfriend of the deputy general manager of the group." After hearing Zhang Fengjai's self-introduction, the old man quickly put away the smile on his face, and answered after thinking seriously for a while, "It should be 4:30 in the afternoon of the day before yesterday. She left with Mr. Song, who was in charge of transporting stones and sand." "Uncle, who is Mr. Song? What does he look like?" "People who are responsible for transporting stones and sand at large construction sites are generally gang members with the nature of chambers of commerce, and they are fully capable of kidnapping Sulitsi." "I don't know Mr. Song's specific name, I only know his nickname is Song Haihu. He is the boss of the Expedition Transportation Company, and he has more than 100 thugs under his command." After introducing Song Haihu's background, the old man couldn't help but frown and asked, "Young man, why are you asking these questions?" "Uncle, my girlfriend dropped a diamond ring worth tens of thousands of dollars when she came to inspect the resort construction site the day before yesterday, and asked me to help her find it today." After saying the excuse he had thought of long ago, Zhang Fengjai turned his head and looked at the surrounding environment, deliberately pretending to be anxious, and said, "Uncle, that diamond ring is my girlfriend's engagement token. It is very important to me. I must find it no matter what." "Young man, don't worry. I will help you find it." When he heard that the lost diamond was worth tens of thousands, the old man was shocked and hurried out of the security room, intending to lead Zhang Fengjai to find it himself. "Uncle, I dare not trouble you. As long as you can give me a detailed introduction to the environment around the resort, I will find the diamond ring." Zhang Fengjai quickly reached out to hold the old man's arm and finally told his intention. Because according to the hexagram, the place where Sulitsi was imprisoned would not exceed the range of 10 miles around the resort. "Okay. I happen to be a local and I am very familiar with the situation here." After nodding in agreement, the old man pointed to the east of the resort and introduced it. "Young man, about 6.5 miles east of here is the city, and there are 3 suburban villages around it, namely Dujia Village, Zijia Village, and Tumen Village." The old man continued to introduce, moving his finger to the north. "Young man, 4 miles north of here is both suburban and rural. Because the village at that location is called Wanliu, it is divided from the central street of the village. The south belongs to the city and the north belongs to the countryside. For this reason, the villagers at both ends of the village not only often quarrel and fight, but also the secretary and the village head have never been elected normally, causing Wanliisha to become a gangster village without any management. After all, the household registration in suburban and rural areas is different, and the ballots issued and the election methods are also different. When Zhang Fengjai heard that there was such a unique village to the north of the resort, he was very curious and took 2 steps back to mobilize his spiritual power to open his eyes. With the help of spiritual power, he could barely see the luck of the village 2 kilometers away, and vaguely found that the luck there was not only very chaotic, but also mixed with a lot of resentment, blood, and evil spirits. Tiger's Den, still a dangerous and inaccessible place. Wanlia village, which is mixed with a lot of resentment, blood, and evil spirits, is a very suitable environment for imprisoning Sulitsi. However, in order to ensure that there would be no mistakes, he calmed down and continued to listen to the old man's introduction to the situation in the south and west of the resort. After analyzing the environment in 4 directions, Zhang Fengjai finally determined that the place where Sulitsi was imprisoned was Wanlia village, which had a very complicated environment. "Uncle, please wait a moment." Being able to determine the tiger's den so quickly, thanks to the old man's enthusiastic help, Zhang Fengjai, who was grateful, signaled the other party not to leave for the time being, turned back to the Bugatti Veyron sports car, and then ordered Zhu Zhenjun. "Brother Zhu, bring me 2 bottles of good wine." After receiving the 2 bottles of national liquor worth thousands of yuan from Zhu Zhenjun, Zhang Fengjai walked back to the old man and stuffed them into his arms. "Uncle, a little gift, I hope you won't delay." Then, without giving the old man a chance to refuse, he quickly returned to the sports car and instructed Zhu Zhenjun. "Brother Zhu, bypass the resort and drive directly to the north." "Got it?" After nodding in response, Zhu Zhenjun started the sports car and left the resort, rushing to Wanlia village at the fastest speed. This is the national liquor that only big bosses and leaders can drink." After returning to the security room, the old man put on his reading glasses and carefully observed the 2 bottles of liquor given by Zhang Fengjai. When he saw the exquisite packaging and the 5 words printed on the wine box, he was shocked and muttered to himself. "I remember that during the Chinese New Year, when Lao Er invited the leaders of his institute to dinner, he used national wine. It seems that a bottle of national wine is worth more than 2,000 yuan. No, I can't accept such an expensive gift." Shaking his head vigorously, the old man quickly took off his reading glasses, took out a jade pendant with an ancient color from the drawer and put it around his neck, then left the security room with 2 bottles of national wine and went directly through the construction site to Wanlia village. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 215. Since Wanlia village is between the city and the countryside, although its economy is not very rich, it often receives support from the county government. Therefore, the road leading directly to the village is not only very spacious, but also all asphalt-paved concrete roads. This allowed Zhu Zhenjun, who was driving the Bugatti Veyron, to successfully reach the entrance to the village in less than 3 minutes. Indicating Zhu Zhenjun to stay in the car, Zhang Fengjai got out of the car and quickly climbed up a poplar tree about 10 meters high next to the village entrance, then stood on a branch as thick as an arm and carefully observed the overall feng shui layout of Wanlia village. Then, he couldn't help frowning. Originally, he thought that the resentment, blood, and evil spirits in Wanlia village were caused by the chaotic situation described by the old man, and he only needed to find the place where Sulitsi was imprisoned. But through his observation of the feng shui layout trend of the entire village just now, he found that the situation was much more serious than what the old man described. There are orchards to the east, north and west of Wanlia village, but the varieties of fruits planted are different. There are red apples to the east, red dates to the south, and red pomegranates to the west. According to the normal layout of the environment suitable for living, it is best to occupy more than 3 elements of the 5 elements so that the 5 elements can form a fortune that breeds vitality. However, the 3 sides of Wanli village are wood and the south is gold, which forms a trend of wood breaking gold and destroying wealth, and eventually leads to bloody conflicts among villagers for a little bit of petty things. If it is just a simple trend of wood breaking gold and destroying wealth, it is easy to say, as long as the main door faces south when building the house, and forcefully gather wealth into the door. However, the streets and yards of the village are planted with willow trees with extremely tenacious vitality, which eventually forms a trend of wood surrounding gold and destroying wealth. As the saying goes, money is not omnipotent, but without money is absolutely impossible. When they cannot obtain wealth through normal means, kind people will become extremely vicious. This is the real reason why Wanli village is filled with strong resentment, blood, and evil spirits. However, the sinister feng shui layout of Wanli village has nothing to do with him. He just wants to rescue the kidnapped Sulitsi safely. So, after shaking his head vigorously and forcibly dispelling the distracting thoughts in his mind, he began to carefully observe every house in the village. Wanli village is just a small village with a population of barely over 1,000. There are only more than 100 independent buildings. Relying on the observation of luck and the tacit induction of the mind, Zhang Fengjai quickly locked onto a slightly dilapidated 2-story building at the east end of the village. Gently jumping off the tree and getting back into the car, he told Zhu Zhenjun to drive the car directly to the east end of the village, and then told him to continue waiting in the car. Then, he stepped in front of the iron gate that had begun to peel off the paint, took a deep breath, and directly reached out and pressed on the tightly closed iron gate. Then, he mobilized the spiritual power of Danshan to break the bolt of the iron door, and then pushed it hard. As the iron door was slowly pushed open, an unusually harsh sound was heard. Squeak. Who? The unusually harsh sound immediately attracted the attention of the people in the yard, and a slightly hoarse questioning voice sounded. Ignoring the questioning voice, Zhang Fengjai stepped into the yard and saw 4 shirtless young men playing cards and gambling in the yard, and a middle-aged man standing in the corner smoking. And the hoarse questioning voice just now came from this middle-aged man who never put down his cigarette. Who are you? Who are you looking for? Seeing Zhang Fengjai who broke into the yard without permission, the middle-aged man threw away the cigarette butt in his hand, and while questioning loudly, he walked towards him. There was no need to continue observing. Just based on the familiar smell in the yard, Zhang Fengjai had already determined that Sulitsi was imprisoned in this building. Thinking of these ignorant guys who dared to kidnap his beloved woman, the strong murderous intent in his heart made him kick the middle-aged man nearly 5 meters away, hit the wall and fell down, and then vomited blood and fainted. Boy, you are looking for death. Boy, you dare to hurt brother whose men, I think you are tired of living. Kneel down and kowtow to apologize quickly, otherwise, I will let you know why the flowers are so red. Zhang Fengjai's fierce and brutal attack just now immediately angered the 4 young men who were gambling. They threw away the cards in their hands and rushed towards Zhang Fengjai with curses. 4 ordinary gangsters were not worthy of his attention at all. He still raised his foot and kicked the 4 gangsters nearly 5 steps away, making them hit the wall like the middle-aged man, and then vomited blood and fainted. Then, he kicked the glass door and entered the house, just in time to see Sulitsi tied to a chair. Fortunately, although Sulitsi was not in a very good spirit at this time, she did not suffer any torture or humiliation, which made Zhang Fengjai secretly relieved. After all, Sulitsi was a demon with stunning appearance, enchanting figure, charming temperament, and easy to arouse men's impulse. He did not want his beloved woman to be taken advantage of by other men. The fight in the yard and the glass door being forcibly kicked and broken had already alarmed Sulitsi in the house, as well as a middle-aged strong man with dark skin and a strong figure, and a beautiful woman with a delicate appearance and a hot figure. Yezi. Sulitsi, who had been kidnapped for nearly 2 days, had already fallen into helpless despair after the initial anger, fierce resistance, desperate struggle, and the blow of family indifference. At this time, when she saw Zhang Fengjai falling from the sky and the lover she had been calling for in her heart appeared in front of her, the excitement and joy that instantly surged in her heart made her cry with tears in her eyes. After the charming beauty and the middle-aged man glanced at each other, the middle-aged man shook his head and walked slowly towards Zhang Fengjai, holding hands, while the charming beauty quickly ran to Solitsi, and then took out a sharp knife. The dagger was pressed directly against her pink neck. Seeing that the charming beauty dared to threaten Solitsi's safety, Zhang Fengjai's eyes flashed with a frightening cold light. His spiritual power combined with the speed of Qing Feng's step allowed him to appear in front of the charming beauty in an instant, surpassing the middle-aged man. Before she could react, he reached out and strangled her neck, then slowly lifted her up. As fast as the wind, he could easily lift a beautiful woman weighing more than 90 kilograms. This made the middle-aged man immediately realize that the seemingly thin boy in front of him was actually a very skilled master. Therefore, after a look of horror flashed in his eyes, the middle-aged man turned around and fled out of the house without any backbone or affection. This made the beautiful beauty, who gradually found it difficult to breathe, shed tears of sadness and despair in her eyes. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yanyun Yuqi. Chapter 216. Wanli Village. Instead of chasing the escaping middle-aged man, Zhang Fengjai threw the beautiful woman who was crying and sad directly onto the sofa 3 meters away, ensuring that she would not be harmed in any way while feeling the pain. Then, he reached out and untied Solitsi, and apologized with guilt in his eyes. Sister Lizzie, I'm so sorry, I'm late. However, before he could finish his apology, his mouth was blocked with fiery and sweet and moist flame lips. Having already had a passionate kiss with Solitsi, Zhang Fengjai felt excited and could not help but respond vigorously to the other party's affection. The passionate kiss lasted for nearly 2 minutes, until the brain began to feel a suffocating feeling due to lack of oxygen, and Solitsi, who had a blushing face, reluctantly ended the passionate kiss. Sister Lizzie, Solitsi's uncontrollable enthusiasm just now made Zhang Fengjai's heart even more filled with guilt and self-blame. When he was about to continue his apology, Solitsi hugged him tightly and whispered in his ear. Yizi, from now on I will try my best to get rid of my bad temper, become a gentle and kind woman, and be a good wife who manages the house and is gentle. Solitsi's seemingly inexplicable decision made Zhang Fengjai vaguely feel that something must have happened during the kidnapping that he could not use the hexagrams to deduce. Although Solitsi's decision to change was definitely a good thing for him, he was not willing to see his beloved woman being wronged. Reaching out and stroking her hair, Zhang Fengjai secretly made up his mind to find out the reason that made her change her decision. You'd better leave quickly, otherwise, you won't be able to leave even if you want to later. Just when Zhang Fengjai and Solitsi were immersed in a tender embrace, the charming woman who wiped the tears from her eyes suddenly stood up and reminded them. Because Song Haihu is the leader of Wanliadong village and has the prestige and ability to respond to every call in the village, he should be gathering the people in the village to besiege you now. Solitsi, whose face changed slightly after hearing the reminder from the charming woman, also reminded her. Yizi, Miss Zhang is right. Song Ziyuan does have the ability to summon the villagers of the East Village to stand up for him. Okay, let's leave now. A few hundred ordinary villagers can be easily defeated, whether they use the physical strength of steel and iron bones to fight hard, or use mysterious magic to scare them. However, when he saw Solitsi's nervous expression and thought of the kidnapping she had just experienced, he suddenly felt soft-hearted and didn't want her to worry, so he nodded and agreed to her suggestion, then held her hand and left quickly. However, Just as he led Solitsi to the glass door that had just been kicked to pieces, he stopped and turned to remind the charming woman. The yintang turns black, the evil spirit surges to the sky, the second palace of wealth is dim, and the palace of life is filled with blood. Girl, the man you fall in love with will be destroyed in as little as 3 days or as long as 5 days. If you don't want to be implicated in his bad luck, you'd better sever all ties and contact with him immediately. After hearing Zhang Fenjai's reminder, the charming woman named Zhang nodded quickly and said, "Tonight I will leave Sishui County for Ningji City, and then join one of my sisters. I may not come back in the future. Take care." After leaving a blessing, Zhang Fenjai and Solitsi quickly left the yard and rushed to the sports car at the entrance of the alley. However, just when they were less than 20 meters away from Zhu Zhenjun's sports car that had started, a dozen villagers armed with iron bars, sickles, and shovels appeared in front of the sports car menacingly. At the same time, more than 20 villagers also holding agricultural tools appeared behind them. Seeing Zhang Fenjai and Solitsi being blocked, Zhu Zhenjun quickly turned off the engine, pulled out a baseball bat from under the passenger seat, and was excitedly ready to join the melee. Because he knew very well that not to mention dozens of ordinary villagers holding farm tools, even hundreds of elite thugs holding weapons could never harm Zhang Fenjai, who was born in a Taoist section. He just wanted to take the opportunity to feel it. A bloody melee. "Sister Lizzie, please return to the courtyard first. Now that it has been completely blocked, the next step is to frighten the instigated villagers and wake them up, so that they will obediently get out of the way." Therefore, after taking Solitsi back to the yard where she was kidnapped, Zhang Fenjai pushed her into the iron gate and warned her. After nearly 2 months of getting along, Solitsi had seen Zhang Fenjai's strength and methods more than once. She knew that the villagers who besieged him were not only no match for him, but they were even worried that he would attack too hard and hurt the kind-hearted villagers. Therefore, when she saw Zhang Fenjai flexing his hands and feet, she couldn't help but remind him softly. "Yezi, those villagers are a group of kind-hearted people. They were only provoked by Song Ziyuan to surround us. Please be gentle when you strike. It depends. The feng shui layout of Wanliu village is rigid, and it is impossible to generate strong resentment, blood, and evil spirits out of thin air. Then, the source of the strong resentment, blood, and evil spirit that fills the village comes from the villagers in front of them who have become selfish and greedy. Therefore, since Zhang Fenjai has decided to teach them a lesson, he has no intention of showing mercy at all. Boy, hand over the woman surnamed Su immediately, and I will let you leave here safely." Just as Zhang Fenjai was moving his hands and feet to prepare for action, the middle-aged strong man who had just selfishly escaped, that is, Song Haihu in Miss Jiang's mouth and Song Ziyuan in Sulitsi's mouth, gave the conditions for forgiveness and led more than 20 young men with machetes to him. Relying on these vulnerable trash pointing at the hundreds of villagers who had already surrounded him, Zhang Fenjai humiliated with contempt in his eyes. "Boy, didn't your parents teach you to be virtuous?" After hearing Zhang Fenjai's humiliation, a silver-haired old man in his 60s holding a carrying pole shouted angrily. "Old man, didn't your parents teach you not to meddle in other people's business?" Zhang Fenjai also fought back unyieldingly. I didn't expect that the young Zhang Fenjai not only had no moral character of respecting the elderly and loving the young, but also had such sharp words, which made the silver-haired old man suddenly not know what to say. "Boy, dare to insult my grandfather, I think you are tired of living." Just when the silver-haired old man was so angry that he couldn't speak, a young man standing behind Song Ziyuan, holding a machete, about 20 years old, who looked a bit like the silver-haired old man, shouted angrily and rushed over waving the machete. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 217. Wanliu Village. Bang. Just when the young man who rushed over with a machete was less than 2 meters away from him, His spiritual power combined with the extreme speed of King Fengbu allowed him to directly stretch his legs and kick the opponent away, and at the same time, he instantly returned to his original position, giving everyone at the scene a shock. It felt like he had never moved. But the young man, who was kicked nearly 7 or 8 meters away, fell heavily in front of Song Ziuyan, and passed out immediately, clearly reminded them. The thin boy who seemed to have not moved just now was actually a hidden peerless master. No. Seeing the fainted young man with blood flowing from his mouth, the silver-haired old man who just scolded Zhang Fengjai shouted with grief, immediately threw away the pole in his hand, and then sat down next to the young man. While wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, the silver-haired old man shouted in fear. Kaizai, my good grandson, you must not let anything happen to you, otherwise, how will I explain to your parents? Uncle Third, don't worry, old man. After I deal with this damn boy, I will personally drive Xiao Chao to the hospital. I will cover all the medical and nutritional expenses. Crouching down beside the silver-haired old man, Song Ziuyan made a promise that made the old man feel gratified and grateful, then reached out to pick up the machete that fell on the ground, and then greeted the surrounding villagers. Folks, avenge Xiao Chao and kill him. Xiao Chao vomited blood and fainted, and Song Ziuyan's heroic promise immediately aroused the hatred of hundreds of villagers. They held different agricultural tools and walked towards Zhang Fengjai step by step. A bunch of idiots who don't know how to live or die. Seeing the villagers who were easily bewitched by Song Ziuyan, Zhang Fengjai scolded him angrily. The physical strength of steel and iron bones, combined with basic boxing skills, allowed him to rush directly into the sheep-like villagers like a tiger descending a mountain. Along with the constant sounds of collisions and screams, villagers one after another were blown away and knocked down by Zhang Fengjai's heavy punches. This made many villagers who were not very strong in their concentration hearts suddenly feel fear. He deliberately planned to escape. At this moment, an old but loud roar suddenly came from the entrance of the alley. Stop it all! When they heard the loud and angry shouts, both the 20-odd young people who were loyal to Song Ziuyan, the villagers who had long wanted to quit, and Zhang Fengjai who didn't feel the slightest pressure, all subconsciously stopped. Why is this old man here? When he saw the silver-haired old man standing at the entrance of the alley, Song Ziuyan's face changed slightly and he cursed secretly. I'm so dizzy, this old man looking after the gate is so cool. Perhaps because the melee was so violent and bloody, Zhu Zhenjun finally gave up the idea of participating and stayed in the car. But it was precisely because he stayed in the car that he was able to feel up close the vast aura exuded by the old man guarding the resort gate. Put that guy down for me. The old man carrying 2 bottles of national wine stood up straight and walked towards the villagers who stopped, with a stern expression on his face. Everyone doesn't know how to work in the fields or work outside to make money, but they just know how to cause trouble all day long and bully people outside. Don't you feel embarrassed? After hearing the old man's criticism, the villagers who had long wanted to quit quickly threw away their farm tools, but the 20-odd young men who were loyal to Song Ziuyan glared at the old man with unhappy expressions. In response, the old man had a hint of helplessness in his eyes and said nothing more. Then he walked directly in front of Zhang Fengjai and praised him. Young man, I didn't expect you to be not only generous, but also very skilled. The old man's heartfelt praise immediately attracted the attention of Song Ziuyan and others. They quickly turned their heads and took a look, and were surprised to find nearly 40 villagers lying on the ground screaming in pain. And it was less than a minute before the melee started. On the other hand, what about Zhang Maple Leaf? Not only was his whole body spotless, but his face was not red and he was out of breath, as if he had never moved a hand. This made Song Ziuyan and his more than 24 loyal men reveal a trace of frightened fear in their eyes. Uncle, you have given me a reward. Quickly reaching out to hold the old man's arm, Zhang Fengjai humbly gave him a flattery. Compared with your ironclad aura, this junior is not even a bit inferior. You are Uncle Chu who guards the gate of the resort construction site. Just when the old man appeared at the entrance of the alley, Solitsi, who was hiding behind the iron gate, felt something familiar. But I couldn't remember it for a while. When Zhang Fenjai's flattery made the old man smile happily, the image of the old man with the same kind smile on his face when he arrived at the gate of the resort construction site the day before yesterday came to mind, and she finally recognized him. Reveal the other party's identity. You are the vice president of the group who came to inspect the construction site the day before yesterday. With stunning appearance, charming temperament, and devilish figure, Solitsi's charm is basically suitable for all ages. What's more, she was wearing the Yongsheng Group's professional suit. Therefore, when he saw Solitsi coming out from behind the iron gate, Uncle Chu recognized her origin at a glance. Immediately afterwards, Uncle Chu, whose expression suddenly changed, asked Zhang Fenjai in a gloomy tone. "Young man, tell me what is going on? Why is the vice president of the group here?" "Uncle, I'm so sorry, I lied to you just now." If Uncle Chu gave him a kind and warm feeling when he met him at the gate of the resort construction site just now, then, just a roar can shock all the villagers in Wanlia village, giving him a sense of iron-blooded indifference that has experienced bullets and rain, and is not afraid of life and death. And this kind of iron-blooded and indifferent momentum, he has only felt from his second grandfather who has experienced a real war, so Zhang Fenjai did not dare to hide it and introduced it truthfully. Hearing that Song Xiaoyan dared to kidnap Solitsi in violation of the law, Uncle Chu, with a fierce murderous look in his eyes, turned around and walked in front of Song Xiaoyan, and then swung his palm to give him a loud slap. Pa! Accompanied by the loud slap, not to mention that Zhang Fenjai and Solitsi were completely stunned, and even Song Xiaoyan, who was slapped in the face, was also stunned. However, the 20 or so men loyal to Song Xiaoyan were not stunned. One of them, a young man with dyed yellow hair, stretched out his leg and kicked Uncle Chu in the abdomen. Bang! Being stunned, Zhang Fenjai did not notice the action of the young man with yellow hair in advance. When he woke up from his daze, Uncle Chu had been kicked back several steps by the other party. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 218. Wanlia Village. You beast, you're looking for death. Although Uncle Chu was not kicked to the ground, he thought that at his age, the opponent's kick would probably cause him serious injury or even death. Zhang Fenjai's anger instantly burned in his heart, and he shouted angrily and rushed directly towards the opponent. However, just as he was about to rush towards the yellow-haired young man, Uncle Chu suddenly stretched out his hand to block him and shook his head to signal him not to attack. Then, Uncle Chu put down the 2 bottles of national wine in his hand, and then walked step by step towards the yellow-haired young man who had just kicked him. When he saw Uncle Chu walking over, the yellow-haired young man opened his mouth and was about to curse, but a kind of pressure appeared on his body out of thin air, which made him shut up abruptly. At the same time, he looked up at Uncle Chu with a serious face and found that there was a trace of suction in the other's turbid eyes. Affected by the suction force, Uncle Chu in the eyes of the yellow-haired young man gradually changed from a serious old man with silver hair to an ugly monster covered in blood. This made him feel endless fear and his body knelt down on the ground uncontrollably. Song Xiaoyan, who woke up from his daze, and the 20 or so men behind him also looked up at Uncle Chu's eyes because of the strange behavior of the yellow-haired young man kneeling down. Then, they also knelt down on the ground in fear after seeing the ugly monster covered in blood. The sky and the earth are boundless, destroy the evil and slash the evil. Just as Solitsi, Zhu Zhenjun, who had already got off the car, and the villagers who had thrown away their agricultural tools, looked at Song Xiaoyan and others kneeling on the ground with doubtful looks in their eyes, Zhang Fenjai's voice of shouting and chanting suddenly sounded in their ears. Then, everyone saw a long sword emitting silver light appear out of thin air in Zhang Fenjai's right hand, and then he jumped high and slashed directly at Uncle Chu's head. Just when everyone thought that Uncle Chu's head would be split by Zhang Fenjai's long sword, the long sword stopped abruptly just when it touched the silver hair. Then, a gust of wind suddenly rolled up from Uncle Chu's body, directly knocking Song Xiuyan and others who were kneeling on the ground to the ground, and blowing the surrounding villagers back several steps. Zhang Fenjai immediately drew his sword and returned to Sulizi's side, and then slapped out two palm powers in succession to disperse the gust of wind. When the gust of wind disappeared, Uncle Chu's body suddenly softened and fell forward directly. Fortunately, Zhang Fenjai, who had been prepared in advance, supported Uncle Chu in advance. "Young man, you are a cultivator from the Taoist sect." Uncle Chu, who didn't care about the weakness coming from his body, held Zhang Fenjai's arm tightly, and asked excitedly. In response, Zhang Fenjai nodded without hiding anything. In fact, the reason why he suddenly used his spiritual power to condense a sharp sword to attack Uncle Chu was because when Uncle Chu used his aura to oppress the yellow-haired young man, he unexpectedly discovered that the countless resentments, blood, and evil spirits in Wanlia village were actually integrated into the aura emerging from Uncle Chu. It was precisely because of the countless resentments, blood, and evil spirits integrated into the aura that made Song Xiuyan and others kneel on the ground in fear. However, resentment, blood and evil spirits are after all yin and filthy auras, which will not only affect Uncle Chu's mind, but also deprive him of the remaining vitality. Therefore, he would use the sharp sword condensed by spiritual power, combined with the sword method of breaking evil and slashing evil, to directly shatter the resentment, blood, and evil spirits integrated into the aura, and prevent Uncle Chu from dying of vitality. However, when he reached out to support Uncle Chu, a look of doubt flashed in Zhang Fenjai's eyes. That is, Uncle Chu, who was affected by countless resentments, blood, and evil spirits, was not only very clear-headed, but also had no loss of vitality. "Young man, I want to ask you a favor." After receiving Zhang Fenjai's affirmative answer, Uncle Chu took 3 steps back and then bent nearly 90 degrees to ask. "Uncle, you are the elder whom I respect the most. Please tell me what you want and I will do it." "Don't be so polite," Zhang Fenjai quickly promised after avoiding the direction where Uncle Chu bowed 90 degrees. After all, the iron-blooded bones of the other party who had experienced gunfire and rain of bullets made him feel like he was facing his second grandfather. So, from his heart, he was not willing to refuse any request made by the other party. "Young man, I know that the poverty and fighting in Wanlia village are not only due to their own unsatisfactory reasons, but also related to the unreasonable feng shui layout." Whether it was avoiding his 90-degree bow or promising to help, Zhang Fenjai's kind-hearted behavior made Uncle Chu's eyes flash with a look of relief, and then he said what he asked for. "So, I hope you can improve the feng shui layout of Wanlia village so that they can get rid of their bad habits and live a prosperous life." After hearing Uncle Chu's request, the older villagers around him had red eyes, while the younger ones bowed their heads in shame. And Song Xiuyan's eyes revealed a hint of nervousness. Because the reason why his Yuan Zheng group can continue to obtain engineering projects, in addition to the necessary gifts and entertainment, is more of a dishonorable and insidious means. And those insidious means will not only attract the attention of the police, but also provoke revenge from fellow gang members. But the Yuan Zheng group has been established for nearly 7 years, and it has been strong without any incident. The key is that it has the support and help of half of the villagers of Wanlia village behind it. After all, the countryside and farmers are the foundation of a country. Anything that harms the safety of farmers is a big deal, and no one dares to easily cause such trouble. If the boy in front of him can really use the feng shui layout to change the current poverty in the village, who among the wealthy villagers will still follow and support him? Then, he who has lost the support of half of the villagers will either be arrested by the police who have already obtained evidence, or be assassinated by his fellow Chamber of Commerce members. Why? Although it is not complicated to change the feng shui layout of Wanlia village, it only requires cutting off some things and transforming some things, but Zhang Fengjai does not quite understand why Uncle Chu wants to plead for Wanli village. After all, when they first met, Uncle Chu had already vaguely revealed that he was not from Wanli village. Alas! After a light sigh, Uncle Chu took out the pipe and tobacco from his pocket, lit it and took a few puffs, and then began to explain in a serious tone why he wanted to help Wanli village get rid of poverty. It turned out that Uncle Chu's background was exactly as he had expected. He was an iron-blooded soldier who had experienced the baptism of the counter-attack war. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 219. Wanli village. However, the war that second grandpa participated in was the first self-defense counter-attack war, and the war that Grandpa Chu participated in was the second self-defense counter-attack war. Therefore, they were not comrades in the same army, and they had no contact with each other. Because Grandpa Chu made meritorious service on the battlefield, he was awarded the position of company commander. When he was demobilized, he was arranged to Shengshui town where Wanli village was located and became the parent official of Shengshui town. In order to vigorously develop the economy of Shengshui town, he borrowed the experience of developed areas and specially started projects of attracting investment and characteristic agriculture. Villages like Tujia village, Zijia village, and Tumen village in the suburbs of the city used the funds from attracting investment and combined with the geographical advantages of being close to the county town to establish family-based processing workshops, making these villages well-known wealthy villages. Villages that are slightly more remote grow some characteristic fruits and agricultural products and then sell them to some beverage companies. Although the degree of wealth is not as good as that of several villages in the suburbs of the city, it has basically reached a well-off level. Only Wanli village. Not only did the family processing workshop go bankrupt, causing the villagers to owe a lot of foreign debts, but the red Fuji apples, red dates, and Tiangi pomegranates they planted could not be sold at all. Although Uncle Chu later thought of many ways, including government procurement and the means of distributing blessings, the result was not only unable to change the situation of failure, but made the lives of the villagers in Wanli village even more difficult. In the end, because of his inner guilt and self-blame, Uncle Chu not only resigned from his job as the deputy county magistrate, but also took out all his salary and savings to help those in need of the 5 guarantee households in the village and those children who had no money to go to school. This is why his roar just now was able to make the villagers of Wanli village, as well as Song Xiuyan and others subconsciously stop. After hearing Uncle Chu's explanation, not only Zhang Fengjai, Sulitzi, and Zhu Zhenjun sincerely admired him, but even the villagers in Wanli village also showed gratitude and shame in their eyes. After all, even if Uncle Chu resigned from his position as deputy county magistrate, he did not forget the villagers of Wanli village and continued to help them with his work and pension. Uncle Chu, in fact, your guess is correct. The reason why Wanli village cannot get rid of poverty is indeed closely related to the layout of Feng Shui. Walking to Uncle Chu's side, Zhang Fengjai began to introduce the defects of the Feng Shui layout of Wanli village while extending his hand to help him walk to the entrance of the village. Generally, the environment suitable for living will mostly follow the layout of the 5 elements of gold, wood, water, fire, and wood. Standing next to the Bugatti Veyron sports car, Zhang Fengjai pointed to the main road at the entrance of the village and said, "The asphalt paved road is wide and straight, like a giant sword, which is equivalent to gold in the 5 elements, representing wealth." At this point, his fingers pointed to the 3 directions of the west, east, and north of the village. The apple orchard in the west of the village, the red date orchard in the north of the village, and the pomegranate orchard in the east of the village are all resilient fruit trees, which are equivalent to wood in the 5 elements and represent vitality. If according to the principle of mutual restraint in the 5 elements, gold restrains wood, and if wealth overcomes vitality, the villagers of Wanli village should be very wealthy. But any restraint has a certain limit. At this point, Zhang Fengjai pointed to the large number of willow trees planted in the village. The so-called five-element layout refers to the five elements of the southeast, northwest, and center, each occupying one of them. However, Wanli village not only occupies the wood element on three sides, but also the village in the so-called middle position is also prosperous in the wood element. In this case, the gold element representing wealth cannot pierce the wood element at all, and finally forces the villager's own wealth, fortune, and luck to leave the village. Of course, more wood elements representing vitality are not without benefits. At least the elderly in the village are longer lived and the children are less likely to get sick. After hearing Zhang Fengjai's simple and straightforward words just now, detailing the shortcomings and advantages of the village's feng shui layout, not to mention the more superstitious older generation of villagers who believed it, even those young people who received modern education also showed a look of conviction in their eyes. After all, the longevity of the elderly and the health of the children is the most powerful proof. Sulitsi and Zhu Zhenjun looked at Zhang Fengjai, who was talking freely, with a look of thought in their eyes. Only by using more outstanding projects to obtain higher profits for the group and employees can the position of Deputy General Manager be continuously consolidated and the prestige of Deputy General Manager be continuously improved. Therefore, Zhang Fengjai's detailed introduction to Feng Shui layout just now made Sulitsi intend to ask him to help see whether the Feng Shui of the project he was responsible for was reasonable, and whether more profits could be earned through a more reasonable Feng Shui layout. With the rapid development of the national economy, the continuous increase in residents' income, and the improvement of the living environment, the real estate industry is very hot. For Zhu Zhenjun, who has always wanted to start his own business, the real estate industry that can make huge profits is a business that he will get involved in sooner or later. And Zhang Fengjai's amazing attainments in Feng Shui layout gave him the confidence and determination to immediately step into the real estate industry. "Young man, how can we crack and change the Feng Shui layout of Wanli village?" Uncle Chu asked with expectation in his eyes, holding Zhang Fengjai's arm. "It's very simple." After snapping his fingers, Zhang Fengjai pointed to the apple forest at the west end of the village and the pomegranate forest at the east end of the village. "Just cut down half of the apple orchard in the west of the village, dig a shallow well that occupies about half of the village area, and then artificially create the water element in the five elements. Just cut down the entire pomegranate forest in the east of the village, and then plant wheat and corn twice a year. Wheat and corn symbolize a prosperous life and can form the fire element in the five elements." Then he pointed to the willow trees in the streets and yards. "Just cut down 2/3 of the willow trees in the village, release the earth element in the foundation land, and finally form a Feng Shui treasure land where the five elements are born. In this way, the villager's fortune will be significantly improved in as short as 1 month and as long as 3 months. After hearing the suggestions given by Zhang Fengjai, the villagers at the scene fell into silent thinking, except Song Ziyuan, who suddenly stood up and refuted. "Boy, do you know how many years the apple orchard in the west of the village, the pomegranate orchard in the east of the village, and the red date orchard in the north of the village have been planted? 16 years, a full 16 years. You cut down the orchard we planted with so much difficulty with just one sentence from your upper lip. Not only can I, Song Ziyuan, not agree to it, but even the thousands of villagers in the east and west of the village will not agree to it." The Best Physiognomist. Author, Yan Yun Yuqi. Chapter 220. Wanli village. After hearing the reasons for Song Ziyuan's rebuttal, many elderly villagers at the scene showed hesitation in their eyes. After all, as Song Ziyuan just said, the apple forest at the west end of the village, the red date forest at the north end of the village, and the pomegranate forest at the east end of the village were planted, fertilized, and cultivated by their generation one by one. These fruit trees represent the youth and memory of their generation. Now, when the fruit forest is in a good harvest, they are full of reluctance in their hearts. And those younger villagers frowned because of Song Xiuyuan's rebuttal, but before they can be completely sure that the feng shui layout has the effect of improving poor life, they are neither willing nor dare to offend Song Xiuyuan, who has a chamber of commerce background and can bring them benefits. The reaction of the villagers at the scene made Song Xiuyuan look at Zhang Fengjai very proudly, and his eyes showed provocative eyes. In response, Zhang Fengjai said sarcastically with contempt in his eyes, "Song Xiuyuan, I really don't understand what you are so proud of now, and I don't understand why you took the initiative to stand up and refute me just now. Bosu and I are from Ningji City, and have nothing to do with the people of Wanlia village. Whether you are willing to cut down those fruit trees and change the feng shui layout of the village is your own business. Am I forcing you with a sword now?" Zhang Fengjai's contemptuous sarcasm made Song Xiuyuan's face change, and also made those villagers who showed hesitation in their eyes suddenly realize. Yes. The mysterious young man in front of him had no relatives or friends with him, and he did not take the initiative to ask for money for feng shui. He was only willing to point out the defects and ways to change the feng shui layout of the village because of Mr. Chu's pleading. Song Xiuyuan's accusation just now was not reasonable, and the hesitation of himself and others seemed unnecessary. As if the sarcasm just now was still not strong enough, Zhang Fengjai continued to question with a contemptuous look. "Song Xiuyuan, whether these fruit trees have been planted for 16 years or 26 years, can they be used to improve your life and increase your income?" Faced with Zhang Fengjai's questioning, Song Xiuyuan took several steps back and didn't know how to answer. And all the villagers at the scene showed a look of pain and determination. If those abundant fruits could make money, their lives would be so difficult, and they would risk being arrested by the police to protect a wicked chamber of commerce leader. So, whether it was the older generation of villagers who couldn't bear it or the younger villagers, they had made up their minds to cut down the fruit trees and then rearrange the feng shui pattern according to Zhang Fengjai's instructions. After retracting his contemptuous gaze, Zhang Fengjai put on a smile on his face again and said goodbye to Uncle Chu. "Uncle, it's getting late. Mr. Su and I have to hurry back to Ningji City, so we'll talk again when we have time. Young man, don't leave in a hurry. I'll treat you to a meal." Reaching out and grabbing Zhang Fengjai's arm, Uncle Chu reluctantly asked him to stay. "Uncle, Mr. Su has been kidnapped by Mr. Song for 2 days. Now he needs an absolutely quiet and comfortable environment to rest, so I'll come to accompany you for a few drinks another day." After shaking his head to reject Uncle Chu's enthusiastic request, Zhang Fengjai turned around and looked at Song Xiuyuan, who had a gloomy face, and asked with an indifferent look, "Song Xiuyuan, where is Mr. Su's car?" Zhang Fengjai's counterattack and questioning just now completely aroused the determination of everyone on the scene to change the feng shui layout. No matter whether the feng shui layout after the transformation can completely get rid of poverty and lead a wealthy life in the future. But at least now they have a goal to strive for, and they will definitely not defend themselves as hard as before. Then, the police who could sense the wind, as well as the opponents on the road, would definitely take this opportunity to clean themselves up. Feeling the crisis coming, Song Xiuyuan immediately thought of going out to hide, but going out requires money, hiding requires living, which requires a large amount of money to be prepared in advance. And Sulitzi's BMW sports car can just be exchanged for a rich amount of money for enjoyment. So, facing Zhang Fengjai's questioning, Song Xiuyuan said viciously, "Smashed, lost, gone." Judging by his heartbeat, breathing and tone, Zhang Fengjai knew that the other party was lying. After a terrifying cold light flashed in his eyes, he flashed in front of Song Xiuyuan, then grabbed his neck and lifted him up. "Mr. Song, with my means, even if all the villagers of Wanlia village protect you, I can still easily kill you. The reason why I didn't do anything to you is to let you accept the punishment and trial of the law, so that those who have been hurt by you can get psychological and economic comfort." He threw Song Xiuyuan to the ground with force, and then stepped on his chest and threatened, "But if you continue to provoke me, then I don't mind sending you to walk on the Nahi Bridge in advance. Song Xiuyan could feel the strong murderous intent in Zhang Fenjai's threatening tone. He didn't care about the physical pain caused by being thrown and smashed, and hurriedly ordered the yellow-haired young man just now. Xiangzi, drive Mr. Su's sports car quickly. After hearing Song Xiuyan's order, the yellow-haired young man immediately turned around and ran away. Just less than 3 minutes later, a 90% new BMW sports car stopped in front of Sulitsi. After kicking Song Xiuyan away, Zhang Fenjai bowed to Uncle Chu and said goodbye, then opened the door and got into the BMW sports car, and then told Sulitsi to drive away. Yezi, do you need to call the police? When the sports car drove to the asphalt-paved road, Sulitsi looked through the window and found that Song Xiuyan's men were also driving a car to take him away from Wanliushu, and immediately reminded him with some worry. After all, during the time she was kidnapped, she heard too many things about Song Xiuyan's illegal crimes from the kidnappers who were guarding her. She didn't want to see Song Xiuyan, who was full of evil, escape the punishment and sentence of the law. Sister Litsi, don't worry. Turning her head to look at Song Xiuyan and others who were planning to escape in a hurry, Zhang Fenjai explained with a smile. If Song Xiuyan continues to stay in Wanliu village, he will be relatively safe for 3 to 5 days with the protection of some villagers who believe in him. But as long as he leaves Wanliu village, which is protected by the villagers, the police who already have a lot of evidence, or the people he has offended in the past, will definitely not let him escape easily.